just cozy up to us. We've got your back. And the country ends up destroyed. Please, Taiwanese friends, look at a map, look at the breadth of the Pacific, understand what the U.S. government has been doing. It's not even about Taiwan.
Let me ask about this, Joanna. Like the fact of the matter is that China is Taiwan's largest trading partner. The fact of the matter is that the Taiwanese government is called the Republic of China because it itself recognizes itself as a China, right? We have de facto two Chinese governments, right? We have a disagreement of who is the legitimate government. You have a disagreement of how to go forward, but how do you see the forces inside the Taiwanese body politic, the ROC body politic, acting with China, with the United States? Because we know that a majority of Taiwanese citizens is actually for the status quo. They don't want independence, they don't want reunification, they want status quo. What are your thoughts?
Exactly. So let me define what status quo is. I am 66 years old. The last time there were bombs fell on Kinmen was 66 years ago. So I recall, Pascal, you said once that we are de jure at war, but de facto in peace. And that's the status quo of Taiwan. We have managed, even right after the last war in Kinmen, we have managed to stay out of each other and a status quo, which is a relative peace. And also in 2005, I was part of the envoy with Mr. Lian Zhan to visit Beijing with Hu Jintao. After the first time, the leaders of KMT and Communist Party in China shook hands, we actually had 8 years of relative peace with people discussing in terms of practical matters and resolving those, signing agreements with 22 government-to-government meetings, signing about 32 different agreements. So we were entirely possible and capable of resolving our issues with the leaders across Taiwan Straits, like Jeff was saying. But the turning point was really the last two DPP leaders, starting from Tsai Ing-wen in 2016 to Lai Ching-te in 2024. They have, with the encouragement of the United States, pushed an extremist separatist agenda, which is Taiwan independence. And when they pushed that agenda, which wants to separate Taiwan from the overall concept of China, then PRC has drawn one after another red line, extremely clear red line with their internal laws, such as anti-succession law and so on and so forth. And they actually laid out three conditions that there would be military confrontation. One is there's no hope for eventual unification. Secondly, there is international involvement, which is what Jeff was saying, international involvement in the Taiwan situation. In my view, such as if U.S. sent a lot of military armaments or servicemen or another military advisory group to Taiwan, and that would constitute the second one. And the third one is there were no possibility and there is a strong push of Taiwan independence. So all three has a strong warning sign laid out for people in Taiwan. So if we are really looking at status quo, in the most recent election, DPP won 40% of the 70% of the people who voted. So you can use the broadest number. 28% of the people in Taiwan supported DPP, which is Lai Ching-te. And even smaller numbers supported his extreme separatist position. So less than 28%, I think the ones who support his extremist position is less than 10%. Unfortunately, our system, our structure, doesn't give us ability to check and balance the executive branch. We have 5 branches of government. If someone wins the presidency, they will control the executive branch. The control yuan, which is a sort of quasi-legal judicial, the judicial branch, because they have nomination right of all the Supreme Court justices, and also the ability to use their ability to have bureaucrats to select and use bureaucrats. So that's the 4th yuan. But the only branch, which is legislative branch, has no ability to come to check and balance the other four branches. Our legislative yuan doesn't have the true power of the purse string. We approve the budget, but we cannot give the authorization of using the money. We don't have investigation rights. We don't have congressional hearing. We cannot hold people contempt of the Congress. So we have very handicapped legislative branch that will have no ability to balance whatever the executive branch leader wants to do. And that is a very real situation of our inability to fight letting this DPP separatist agenda. He can say anything in January 1st, May 20th, which is his inauguration date, and October 10th, which is our National Day. All three speeches send extremely strong signals to PRC, and PRC will interpret his three speeches and decide what they would do to Taiwan.
Jeff, when you hear this, I mean, do you know anything about the way that the United States government, the Biden administration, the incoming Trump administration are officially or unofficially liaising with the DPP? I mean, there is a representative office, right, of Taiwan in Washington, a de facto embassy, if not although not de jure. I was there once, a beautiful building because it used to be the Chinese, the Chinese embassy, right?
Yeah, it's the notes.
It's huge. But how do you think behind the scenes the liaising is happening at the moment?
Well, they don't need the building in Washington for liaising. They have plenty of ways to liaise. And this is a relationship of the deep state, that is the intelligence security services, the Pentagon, the military, the national security agencies, the NSC and the White House. This is strategic from the U.S. point of view. I can only say to the Taiwanese friends, again, remember the adage of Henry Kissinger, to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, to be a friend is fatal. And what Kissinger meant is you get too close to the U.S. and all its glib promises and you get destroyed. And the United States has done this repeatedly. Just cozy up to us, we've got your back. And the country ends up destroyed. And so please, Taiwanese friends, look at a map, look at the breadth of the Pacific, understand what the U.S. government has been doing. It's not even about Taiwan. The U.S. policy is about China. When China became as successful as it has been, which in my view is a great tribute to the people of China and a great benefit for the world, by the way, because it is wonderful when a great civilization of 1.4 billion people achieves economic success and advancement of technology and is able to benefit and share that with the rest of the world through international trade and finance and investment. This is a good thing, not a bad thing. But in the U.S. point of view, where there are winners and losers rather than people who benefit from a higher living standard, but everything is viewed as us versus them, China's rise became a, quote, bad thing. Now, it's important to understand, in this context, Taiwan is a piece of this puzzle. Taiwan is not a primary objective of the United States. The objective of the United States is beat China, be number one, keep China down. And Taiwan has its role in all of that. Divide China, weaken China, surround China, build up the military around China. Again, from a military point of view, control Taiwan to limit China's freedom of navigation, its access to the Western Pacific, or its freedom of navigation for its essential sea lanes in the South China Sea, and so forth. And we have people coming into the new Trump administration who write articles and books that China's trying to take over the world. So we absolutely need to confront China. And Taiwan's a critical piece of us confronting China's desire to take over the world. This stuff is like comic books. Yeah, it's like a Hollywood script. China's trying to take over the world. By the way, the motivation is China's 20% of the world economy. And now Asia is 50%. Well, if China's 20% and we leave it alone, it will control the whole 50%. And then by controlling the whole 50%, it will control 100%. This is more primitive than a bad high school paper, by the way. But this is senior officials of the US government. This is what's called strategic planning, jumping from one absurd proposition to an extrapolation, to an extrapolation, to an extrapolation until you have a war. And then I would actually ask people to look at a map and read something about the war games. How's a war going to be? Is it going to work for Taiwan? No, not exactly. It's going to destroy Taiwan.